Part 42. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 412. No. Lin's eyes lit up. As long as he doesn't let himself die, then anything will work. Dare I ask my seniors, what is this fourth path? God's way. Li Yun said two words slowly with a look that was half a smile but not a smile. The way of heaven. Lin was stunned. At this point, he naturally knew the existence of heaven's law, but the law of heaven's law was too vague. Even he could not understand too much about the law of heaven's law. Good. Li Yun nodded, stood up, walked to the door of Tianji building, looked up at the sky, a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes, and said, "Have you ever heard the words Shen He Tian Dao? To combine the body with the Tao, this is a method Li Yun came up with based on the memory of his previous life. In the past, in the prehistoric world, there was an ancestor Hung Jun who combined the body with the Tao of heaven. From then on, he was superior to all things. Although he abandoned own emotions, but there is no doubt that Hung Jun himself is already invincible in this world. Now, the Tianyuan world is not the prehistoric world, and Lin is not Hung Jun. There is a big difference between the two. However, the Tianyuan world is at a critical moment when it merges with the way of heaven in several other worlds. If Lin could take advantage of the situation and merge with the heavenly Dao of the Tianyuan realm, it may not be impossible to achieve Hung Jun's step. Once he succeeds. Apart from anything else, at least in the Tianyuan realm, all creatures under the heavenly Dao cannot escape the control of Lin, and since my Tianji tower is located in the Tianyuan realm, there will be fewer constraints in the future. By then, Red Scale merges with the Dao of heaven, and you control Red Scale. Doesn't this mean that you indirectly control the Dao of heaven? As for things like divine punishment, they will never affect him again. Outside the Tianji tower, I have a powerful subordinate who can also control the way of heaven. It can be said to be a double kill. In the future, as long as the Tianyuan world continues to become stronger. And I will also gain a fighter with unlimited potential. In line with the way of heaven. Lin's eyes widened and he glanced at Li Yun in disbelief. This was the first time he heard this word. Almost no one had done this in the past. Can this work? I guess. In the world, only the Tianji landlord in front of me could come up with such a crazy idea. Senior, the way of heaven is everywhere, elusive and indescribable. How can this fit in with the way of heaven? Moreover, the way of heaven is the will of a world, and if you rashly merge with it, once you succeed, will you still be a junior? Lin said worriedly. He is not a fool. Although he has never seen such a big world, he can guess some of the risks just by thinking about it. Even if the way of heaven is thoughtless, it still has instinct. After all, the way of heaven wants to dominate everything. The trajectory of things. After integrating the Dao of heaven, will the Dao of heaven be the leader, or will you be the leader? If you are the leader and control all situations, then there is no doubt that this is a great thing. Not only will you not have to worry about running out of life in the future, and picked up a part of the world for nothing. No matter how you look at it, you are making a lot of money. But if the will of heaven is dominant, wouldn't you become a puppet of heaven? After you become one with the way of heaven is you, but you are not the way of heaven. Do you understand what I say? Li Yun said lightly. Dare I ask the seniors, is this the way of heaven of the Tianyuan world, or the way of heaven of the entire world today? Lin asked again. This question must be asked. If it is the Tianyuan world, the value will undoubtedly be greatly reduced. After all, although the Tianyuan world is vast, it is still far behind the earthly immortal world. But if it is, several worlds added together. That's different. If the current worlds can be controlled by him, doesn't it mean that in the future, When the senior TNG owner brings over a few worlds, he will be able to control several worlds. To put it bluntly, from now on, apart from the master of TNG, he will be the most supreme figure in the entire world. It is not an exaggeration to say that one person is inferior to others and is superior to hundreds of millions of people. It depends on your ability. Li Yun turned around, glanced at Qilin, and said with a chuckle, if you can control several worlds, your strength will also undergo earth-shaking changes. At the same level as the way of heaven, even if you don't have any strength, you can still follow the rules. As long as the strength does not exceed the current world, everyone will be controlled by the red scales. Is that so? Jilin lowered his head and thought. He was weighing the feasibility of this matter. He doesn't have much life at the moment. He can only last 3 years at most. After 3 years, even if the past was glorious, it will be just a handful of loess, and he will die sadly. It's better to give it a try in the end. What if he succeeds? If he really merges with the way of heaven, even if the senior TNG building master doesn't talk about the benefits, he can guess it himself. Moreover, who is the master of TNG building? That's close. For all the people in the past, present and future, since he has pointed out this path to himself, there must be a way to succeed. All he has to do is follow what he said. Thinking of this, Qilin no longer had any doubts in his heart. He raised his head and said in a tone of voice, he said sonorously, this junior is willing to give it a try, but I don't know, what will this junior have to pay? What to pay for? The smile on Li Yun's face did not change. In fact, he did not need Qilin to pay anything, because from now on, the rest of Qilin's life would be in his hands. He himself is the biggest price. But if he really having said that, the next second you keep it, Scarlet Scale will be scared away. Therefore, not only do you have to pay some price, but you also have to open your mouth, otherwise, you will not be able to show your sincerity. Since I give you a world, the price you have to pay will not be too small, but, it's not that you can't take it out, it just depends on whether you are willing to part with it. Li Yun raised his eyebrows and said unhurriedly. Isn't it impossible to take it out? Qilin glanced solemnly at the owner of the TNG building, feeling uneasy for no reason in his heart. The TNG building is not a charity hall. After everyone steps here, although the gains are great, the price they pay is also not small. Especially the last sentence, he was reluctant to part with it. He had a hunch that the next move by the owner of TNG was likely to pay a price that was unbearable for him. However, for now, did he have anything to lose? He thought of it. Here, Qilin gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, Senior, feel free to ask, as long as what I have now, I can give it to my senior. Very good. Li Yun spit out 2 words. What he was waiting for was Qilin's words. Life is currently owned by Qilin, but after these words, it will also belong to Li Yun, but he will not expose this. The next second, Li Yun stretched out a hand and made a move in the air. A divine light flew out of Qilin's body, blooming with brilliance and illuminating the entire TNG tower. The price you have to pay is everything you have now. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 413. What? Jilin was shocked. Before he could react, the storage ring fell off his hand. Then, a bronze seal flew out from the center of his eyebrows. On it were engraved mountains, rivers, lakes, birds, beasts, insects, and fish. There was a kind of supreme majesty. The bottom for a big character, the Tao rhyme flows. Everlasting life. This big seal represents the identity of the city lord of Everlasting City. Without this seal, it can be said that there will no longer be any relationship between Everlasting City and Jilin. At least Qilin wants to step into the Everlasting City no longer as the city lord. Senior. Qi. Lin said in a panic. The everlasting city of Tianhuang is different from the ordinary. This is a force he established with his own hands. Under his leadership, he escaped the previous catastrophe of the destruction of Tianyuan realm. Today, it has passed. I don't know how many years have passed. It's impossible to say that he has no feelings. Today, when he handed them all over at once, his heart seemed to be bleeding. If you want to transcend everything, you have to give up everything. This is the price you have to pay. Li Yun said softly. His voice was extremely indifferent, without any emotion contained in it. It was extremely cold and could freeze into a person's bone marrow. Qi Ling clenched his teeth, a look of reluctance on his face. If Tianhuang Eternal City is given to someone else, after his cultivation breakthrough, he will be sure to snatch it back again, but give it to the owner of Tianji. His heart was filled with despair. He knew that even if he tried his best throughout his life, he could never match what he could do. If he handed over the everlasting city today, there would be no possibility of taking it back. The immortal weapons, power, and even the magical skills in his mind were all copied by Li Yun. This way, everything in Jilin has fallen into Li Yun's hands. Next, it's your creation. Li Yun opened his mouth slightly and said in his heart, the system will integrate Jilin's soul mark into this world. Ding, after deducting 18 million Tianji points, the red scale soul mark has been completely integrated into this world. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, a piece of golden light spurted out, like wings hanging from the sky, falling from the sky, covering hundreds of millions of miles in radius. In the vast void, bursts of heavenly sounds sounded. In the Tianji Tower, the brilliance around Jilin surged, and the avenue the divine chains are intertwined and used to penetrate the surrounding void. It is like a holy king coming to the world. Just a breath of breath makes the world unable to bear it. Clang. 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 The breath of destruction and regeneration interact. This is the will of heaven and earth. It can destroy everything, but it can also revive everything. It is mysterious and terrifying. This. Beside. Yang Qi retreated again and again. He had never thought in his life that he would see such a scene. Facing Qilin, he seemed to be facing the entire Tianyuan world. I can't think of any resistance in my heart. This is simply more terrifying than a supreme immortal. What kind of method is this, Senior Tianji poster? Does the way of heaven mean nothing to him? If you say let a person fuse, let a person fuse. If you can do the step like red scale, doesn't it mean that you will be invincible in the world all of a sudden? He heard the conversation between Qilin and the senior Tianji building master just now, word for word. This kind of thing. Even if he knew, there was nothing he could do to stop it. But you can follow suit yourself. For example, if you become one with the heavenly Dao of Zixuan realm, won't the entire Zixuan realm fall into your hands? By then. Not to mention the fairy world, even in the terrifying world, he didn't give up at all. The worst thing is to give everything. He didn't take this price seriously at all. After all, he didn't have much himself. Meng Qingzi, the ancestor of the 9 Nether Demon sect, had nothing to do with him. Moreover, a large part of the Juyu Demon sect's skills have already fallen into the hands of the master of Tianji. To be honest, everything he owns is of little value. Inside the Tianji building, thousands of ways are intertwined, like a spider web, densely packed and crowded in every corner. The laws of heaven and earth become extremely clear at this moment. Anyone who steps here can easily realize the truth. But this process, it didn't last long. Li Yun waved his hand gently, and everything disappeared in an instant. Seeing this, Yang Qiu sighed slightly. The process lasted too short, and there was no time for him to realize. If it lasted for a while longer, he might be able to break through to the middle stage of sainthood. Wake up! Li Yun shouted softly. As soon as he finished speaking, Qi Lin, not far away, shook his body, and a terrible aura flowed in his body. If it burst out, it would be enough to destroy a world. Under his feet, the texture of the avenue was intertwined, and there was a sonorous sound. He seemed to be able to break eternity. Just standing there casually, there was an immortal power that penetrated the eternity, from the past to the present. It seemed that in front of him, the great road would surrender, and the laws of heaven and earth would also unable to go against his will, everyone obeys his orders. This person. Yang Qiu frowned slightly. He glanced at Qi Lin and then quickly looked away. With just this glance, he noticed the difference. The person in front of him seemed to have changed a lot compared to before, but he couldn't tell what was different. The only thing that is the same is probably the horror. Although the previous Qi Lin was powerful, his calmness contained great terror. However, the current Qi Lin gave him a feeling that he was not like a living being. There was no life in his whole body. Same. There is no trace of decay as before, just like Red Scales has been resurrected from the dead, but it has lost its soul, without any thoughts or emotions. I've met seniors. Qi Lin handed over his hand. This time he spoke, his voice was very cold, without any emotion, indifferent to the extreme. How? Li Yun walked to the chair, leaned over and sat down, picked up a cup of tea, took a sip, and said slowly, how do you feel now? There is no danger of running out of longevity. Qi Lin spoke, his face was very stiff, and he seemed to have lost even his basic expressions and movements. It seems like this is a good start. Li Yun put down the teacup and said with a smile. The fusion of Heavenly Dao cannot be completed overnight. Qi Lin is only preliminary in merging with Heavenly Dao, but even so, he can already be said to be the spokesperson of Heavenly Dao. With this identity, as long as the Tianyuan realm is immortal, and he has no fear of his life for a day. Your goal has been achieved. If there is nothing else to do, please step back. Li Yun waved his hand casually. Yes. Qi Lin handed over his hand again, then turned and left. The moment he turned to leave, he met Yang Qiu's eyes, his eyes were teaching in the void. The latter was suddenly stunned, and he didn't realize it until this moment. He almost killed him just now. The person who killed him has become completely different from just now. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 414. This person. Yang Qiu stood on the spot, turned slightly sideways, and moved out of the way. He looked at Qi Lin without blinking. This time, Qi Lin didn't react at all. It wasn't until Qi Lin disappeared in Tianji Tower that Yang Qiu came back to his senses. Come. Senior? Yang Qiu asked softly, why does the senior Scarlet Lin become so weird? People who conform to the way of heaven are naturally different from ordinary people. Li Yun said casually. Does the senior mean that after integrating the way of heaven, the strength will be greatly increased, and even the temper and character will change? Yang Qiu asked curiously. Originally, this Qi Lin was not easy to talk to. If he took one look at the other person, he would immediately kill him. But now that he looked directly at the other person, he didn't even have any temper at all. It has to be said that after the strength increased, even the mentality was different. But when Yang Qiu thought about Qi Lin's eyes again after he left, he felt a little strange in his heart, because the other person's eyes were too. It was indifferent. There was no emotion in it, and it was calm, like a pool of stagnant water. Previously, the decaying aura of Red Scale itself was surrounded by it, like a piece of rotten wood, but after integrating with the way of heaven, the situation changed. He is indeed no longer like a rotten tree. But Qi Lin's way of looking at others has changed. In his eyes, everyone seems to be no different from a piece of rotten wood. Even he, the majestic leader of the 9 Nether Demon sect, has no status in the eyes of others. At first, Qi Lin looked at him like he was an ant, but looking at him at this moment was like looking at air. This change made Yang Qiu a little confused. For a moment, he still didn't know what changes had happened to Qi Lin. These changes are inevitable. Li Yun said softly, if you take something in advance, you must give it in advance. Don't you understand this principle? Of course, juniors understand the truth. Yang Qiu was puzzled. He knew that the longer the strength was, the more indifferent and ruthless the temper would become, but it was like Qi Lin. For a moment, it was as if he was a different person. Looking at hundreds of millions of years of history, this seems to be the first time. Of course, not counting being taken away from him, Yang Qiu still trusts the owner of Tianji Tower in this regard. Senior Master Tianji is already invincible in the world. It is almost useless to see someone who is not as good as him or even about to die. Have you seen the way of heaven in that world? Does it have its own emotions? Li Yun saw Yang Qiu's doubts and said angrily. Well, this is true. Yang Qiu nodded awkwardly. If Tiandao has personal feelings, it is not Tiandao, but a living being. Such Tiandao will have personal likes and dislikes, and will also favor the side he likes. In this way, the world will be in chaos. Senior, are you saying that if you want to conform to the way of heaven, you must first give up the 7 emotions and 6 desires? Yang Qiu seemed to have thought of something and asked aloud. Good. Li Yun nodded. No wonder the senior said that Qi Lin must give everything he has. Yang Qiu understood a little bit. Now that he has lost his emotions, it doesn't make much sense for him to continue to control the Eternal City. By the way, senior, how strong is Qi Lin now? Yang Qiu has not forgotten why he came to Tianji Tower. After all, the great terror from the outside world is coming. If no one in the Tianyuan world can stand up, wouldn't it mean that the end of the Tianyuan world has come? And Qi Lin's strength has increased greatly now. It can be said that he is a trump card in the Tianyuan world. If Qi Lin is willing to help, the earthly immortal world will not be a concern. Red scale. Li Yun thought for a moment and said lightly, let's just say he is the number 1 person under heaven. Qi Lin's own strength, maybe several true immortals can stop him if they join forces, but if he can use the laws of heaven, he only needs to do it in the Tianyuan world. No true immortal is his opponent. Even if there are many true immortals, he can use the laws of heaven. It won't work if the immortals join forces, because Qi Lin's will represents the will of the Tianyuan world. The first person under heaven. Yang Qiu's heart was hot. He rubbed his hands and felt his mouth dry for a while. He thought that red scale was already very strong, but he didn't expect it to be so strong. In this way, wouldn't it be stronger than a true immortal? With Qi Lin here, from Yang Qiu's point of view, this wave should be stable. Without the external trouble, Yang Qiu's mind became active again. He approached Li Yun and said softly, Senior, do you think this junior can also be here, Hishandeo? For example, the way of heaven in the purple mystic realm is just right. Of course. The juniors are also willing to give everything. You. Li Yun glanced at Yang Qiu, then withdrew his gaze and said in a funny tone, everything you have, what do you think you have? In other words, can everything about you be compared to red scale? This. Yang Qiu gave a dry laugh and said a little embarrassedly, although the junior cannot compare with Qi Lin, the respect that the junior has for the senior is like the waves of the river and the sea, endless. If you're trying to flatter yourself, just save it. Li Yun raised his hand, interrupted Yang Qiu's next words, and continued, integrating the way of heaven is not as simple as you think, it is not just as easy as giving up the 7 emotions and 6 desires. If you are not careful, not only will you fail to integrate the way of heaven, but you may become a puppet of the way of heaven. If you want to take this path, you have to be mentally tough to succeed. The mental toughness is almost equivalent to a death sentence for Yang Qiu. He is a member of the devil's path, and he often takes shortcuts on the road of cultivation. It has nothing to do with mental toughness. After all, it was just his senior brother's performance back then. This incident gave him the birth of his inner demon. If he took a huge risk to integrate the way of heaven, Li Yun was almost certain that the way of heaven in Zixuan realm would be a puppet the next day. Even the people of several worlds today, at the critical moment when the way of heaven is merging, Yang Qiu cannot take advantage of it. So that's it? Yang Qiu understood. After giving a dry laugh, he stopped thinking about it. He changed the topic and asked again, Senior, if you merge with the way of heaven, you really want to give up the 7 emotions and 6 desires? Didn't Qi Lin say that he might not care about the life and death of all races in the Tianyuan realm? There are some techniques in the Tianyuan world that can cut off the 7 emotions and 6 desires. People who practice this technique are all very indifferent. Some people even kill their close relatives to prove the truth. If they can do it to their closest relatives, the life and death of others is not theirs. How can you take it to heart? This question is worth a lot of money. Li Yun chuckled and said slowly, but I have a free piece of news that I can tell you in advance. Senior, your message is? Yang Qiu asked in a low voice. This moment, he had a bad feeling. The everlasting city does not belong to the Tianyuan world, but comes from other worlds. Li Yun said lightly. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 415. Other Worlds. When Yang Qiu heard these words, his face paled a few points, and he clenched his fists. Deep in his heart, there was a huge wave of waves. The mood that he had just relaxed suddenly rose again. A person who is not from the Tianyuan world, but is related to Tianyuan. No one can tell whether the fusion of world and heaven is a blessing or a curse. It's not good. This will be a situation where wolves come in through the front door and tigers come in through the back door. You don't need to worry too much. I told you before that this person is a chance of winning in the Tianyuan world, and naturally he will not lie to you. Li Yun said with a chuckle. Whether he will take action for Tianyuan world depends on whether he merges with Heavenly Dao or whether Heavenly Dao controls him in the end. If Qi Lin becomes a puppet of heaven, there is no doubt that Qi Lin will lose all his consciousness and be confused all his life, turning into a tool. But if he successfully merges with heaven, even if he loses his 7 emotions and 6 desires, his instincts will still be there. As the Tianyuan world is his foundation, he will definitely not sit back and watch the Tianyuan world be completely destroyed by the creatures from the earthly immortal world. With your skills as a senior, you should already know the final result, right? Yang Qiu asked tentatively. What you think? Li Yun asked back. To be honest, he didn't know much about this matter, because the system only helped Qi Lin initially integrate the way of heaven. You have to ask the system about the final result. And if you ask the system, you will inevitably spend some TNG points. Just for now, unless he has too many secret points to spend, he will never waste them on this. Younger generation. Yang Qiu was speechless. The senior said this, obviously asking him to pay for it, and he is just a leader of the 9 Nether Demon section. Ordinary news is okay, but it is related to the way of heaven. He probably packed up the entire Juya demon sect and sold it, and he couldn't even afford it. Seniors, there are countless creatures in the Tianyuan realm. If a war really breaks out, there will inevitably be heavy casualties. Isn't it a bit inappropriate to pin your lifelong hopes on a person from another world? Do you have any other methods? For example, Let the juniors improve their strength in a short period of time, just like Fang Han mentioned by the ancestor. Yang Qiu said in a deep voice. It's true that red scale is a glimmer of hope, but if you can improve your strength at this critical moment, that would be a good thing. At least it would give you a little more power to save your life. Not appropriate? Li Yun smiled. If it's not appropriate for Qi Lin to merge with the way of heaven, then he really can't think of anything more appropriate. Do you think I don't know who you are, Yang Qiu? If the Tianyuan world is really in danger of overthrowing, grease the soles of your feet and run faster than anyone else. As for making you like Fang Han, it's easy. With one immortal weapon, I'll give you the power of a true immortal for 3 days. Well. Yang Qiu's face was stiff and he forced a laugh. A piece of immortal weapon, 3 days of true immortal strength, this deal is too uneconomical. If he really had such a weapon, he would definitely treat it as an ancestor and offer it to him. He would not change the position of leader of the 9 Nether Demon sect for 10 times, so why change his strength for 3 days? Senior joked. Yang Qiu whispered this, then walked to the door of Tianji Tower, glanced at the sky outside, and then took back the steps he took. A catastrophe is approaching in the Tianyuan world. Why don't you return to Juyu Demon Sect to take charge of the overall situation? Li Yun said lightly. What the senior said is that the junior was about to go back, but suddenly thought that the invasion of the earthly immortal realm was coming fiercely, but our Juyu Demon Sect had no one to guard the Wang city. Once there was danger, we could not immediately ask the senior for a solution. Therefore, the junior has handed over all the affairs of the sect to the previous headmaster Huang Quan, while the junior remains in the Wang city, ready to deal with the 9 Nether Demon sect at any time. Of course, if the seniors are driven by it, you can just give it. Yang Qiu's words were righteous and awe-inspiring, but every word revealed one word, that is go. The war is about to begin. There is no place in the entire Tianyuan world that is safer than Dawang City. No matter who it is, as long as one foot steps into the great desert city, it can be said that the wind and rain in the outside world have nothing to do with this place anymore, even if the Tianyuan world is destroyed. They will still be unscathed. Ah! Li Yun chuckled. He saw through Yang Qiu's little thoughts and had no intention of exposing him, so he just let it go. At this time, in the chaos, warships were running rampant, boundless, like a piece of Wang Yang, rumbling forward. As for further distance, there were countless savage beasts, pulling chariots, crushing through the void. It's breathtaking when viewed from a distance. A divine peak rises into the sky, its entire body is like ink, and it is made of unknown immortal materials. It shines with cold brilliance and exudes a torrent of momentum, which is extremely terrifying. On the divine peak, several figures stand side by side, each of them facing the mountains. They are as vast as a sea of smoke, like ovens, filled with monstrous blood and piercing the void. The front is Tianyuan realm. In the front, there is a man wearing a purple gold crown. His hair is like a waterfall, hanging down naturally, and the roots are crystal clear. He has his hands behind his back, and his robes are making a sound. The whole person is like a sharp sword coming out of the body, cutting through eternity. During this period, did you and other spies scattered around the Tianji Tower find out any information? Who has sent anyone to Tianji Tower? The man said. With the lessons learned from the Zixuan realm, they must be more prepared when they cross the border this time, just in case another true immortal jumps out at the critical moment. Then if he and others are stupid, they will bump into it. There will be no place to cry when the time comes. For reference, the last time I stepped into the underworld of Zixuan realm in such a public way, I can see a clue that the current underworld has almost slipped from a first-rate force to a second-rate one. Underworld Emperor 1. If the sun does not return, the underworld will not be able to regain its prestige. If the Hades Emperor is seriously injured and succumbs to death, it can be said that the underworld has lost his wife and soldiers, and has not gained much benefit, and finally vomited it all back. Even his boss got involved. Reporting back to the elder, in the past half-month, the forces that have been to Tianji Tower include the Golden Crow clan, the Ye clan, the Dragon clan, the Ling clan, Teishu Holy Land, and Ziwei Holy Land. Wait, 73 forces. We have not counted some unpopular forces. Behind the man, an old man took out a jade slip and recited the contents respectfully. Oh! The man's expression remained unchanged, and he spoke indifferently again. How many of these forces have had great emperors? Is it possible that their ancestors' great emperor is still alive today? This. The old man looked hesitant, shook his head with difficulty, and said some of the forces among them have given birth to great emperors, but they are very far away. We estimate that those great emperors may have passed away. Fantasy, may create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 416. Estimate. The man's eyes flashed with a cold light. Before the emperor list came out, Emperor Bai Li of Zixuan realm, in the eyes of many people, had already passed away. But what was the result? It didn't take long for him to he has become a true immortal directly. It is true that no one in the Tianyuan world is on the god list, but it does not mean that there are no people in the Tianyuan world who are at the peak of the great emperor. If someone gives it a try, and with the help of the master of Tianji, it may not be impossible to become an immortal. Even if it is barely possible. Immortals are also true immortals. They are not something great emperors like them can resist. This is because I have neglected my duty. I will immediately send someone to continue investigating. The old man's face was tense, and his old face was instantly covered with sweat. Although he looked much older than the person in front of him. But in terms of longevity, he was far behind. The person in front of him he is a great emperor who has lived for millions of years and has reached the pinnacle of strength. He himself is just a great sage, and in terms of seniority, he is just his disciple. Now facing the man's anger, he felt extremely worried. No need. The front is Tianyuan realm, it would be too late to inquire now. The man snorted coldly and said indifferently. Yes. The old man was frightened and said with cupped hands. Where are Yugzagong and others now? The man asked again. Tianyuan realm is different from Zixuan realm. The two realms were merged together before, so the battlefield was placed on the border between the two realms, but now they come across the border. And there is no border with Tianyuan realm. So, where they want to go is entirely up to their own minds. It can be said that in today's Tianyuan world, they can come everywhere, and any place may turn into a battlefield. And Yugzu Palace, as the earthly immortal world a transcendent force, their every move has attracted much attention, and no one wants to be in the same place as Yugzu Palace. The entire Tianyuan world is vast, and the strongest among them is only the great emperor, who is too weak in their eyes. It's almost undefended. So, they can't afford to offend Yugzu Palace and other forces, but they can still hide. The people from Yugzu Palace are still missing, but 30 million miles away to our left are the people from Fuiyun Mountain. They may enter the Tianyuan realm at the same time as us. At that point, there may be some friction. The old man said in a deep voice. In their view, as long as there is no true immortal in the Tianyuan world, they will be vulnerable. Therefore, their real enemies may not be people from the Tianyuan world. Maybe, they may be their fellow travelers. Fuiyun Mountain. When the man heard this, a sneer flashed in his eyes, and he said disdainfully, it's just a self-righteous section. All their true immortals have fallen, and even their immortal soldiers have fallen into the hands of Emperor Bai Li. It has no real background and is not worth mentioning. What the elder said is that Fuiyun Mountain is indeed not worth mentioning in front of our Qin clan. The old man said flatteringly. In the earthly immortal world, Although the imperial clan is famous, the ones who really have the right to speak are those forces with supreme true immortals sitting at their command, such as Yugzu Palace and the Qin family. Such forces are the only ones who have the right to speak. To be honest, Fuiyun Mountain in the past was indeed qualified to be on equal footing with them, but from the moment the ancestor of Fuiyun Mountain fell, Fuiyun Mountain has been kicked out of this ranks. Fuiyun Mountain walks with us, this will be there. The man's face was cold, his mouth opened and closed, and he was about to say something. Suddenly, call out. Several streams of light shot from a very far distance, breaking through the void, like thunder, making a harsh sound, which made countless people change their expressions after hearing it. The man raised his head and looked in the direction from which the stream of light was flying. His eyes froze slightly. He raised one hand, and a vortex spun in the palm of his hand, exuding a terrifying pulling force. With his palm as the center, the surrounding void began to distort. Those streams of light were reversed by him in mid-air and flew towards the divine peak where they were. The stream of light fell to the ground and the light dispersed. In front of the man, there were several more heads. Seeing this scene, the old man's pupils shrank, and a look of disbelief flashed across his face. This was a spy from their Qin clan, who was one step ahead of them and rushed to the Tianyuan world. Did not expect. I was sent back directly today. It would be fine if he was sent back, but the head was sent back. The soul in it has been wiped out into nothingness by violent means. How unreasonable. The man hadn't spoken yet, but the old man was already shaking with anger. He clenched his teeth and squeezed out a few cold words from between his teeth, saying in a cold voice. In this Tianyuan world, they are so unbridled, they simply don't know how to live or die. Do they think my Qin clan has no one? How many years? Is it millions of years or tens of millions of years? Even if a member of the Qin family is a servant, when they go to the outside world, they are superior to others. When has a descendant of the Qin family ever been beheaded? Have you ever killed them? Not only did they die today, but several of them died at once. It was as if someone slapped them naked in the face, left and right, several times. There is no need to be angry, just take the bodies of these people down and put them in a safe place. When we return to the immortal world, we will bury them in the ancestral land. The man's voice was indifferent, and no fluctuations could be heard. He raised his head and looked at the deep sky in the distance. His eyes narrowed slightly, and there was an undisguised murderous intention in it, which filled the air and divided everything. The children of my Qin clan will not die in vain. Soon, someone will be buried with them. The words just fell. Two cold voices echoed from heaven and earth. Is it? Unfortunately, you have no chance. Your descendants are waiting for you on their way to death, and it's time for you to accompany them. The moment the two figures came out. Boom. Sonorous. A great halberd flew across the sky, with a dark light, breathtaking, and stretched for thousands of miles. It was like a pillar of heaven falling, crushing everything. Its murderous aura rolled back across the galaxy, and its divine power immediately destroyed the entire chaos. On the other side, a big round the sun shone brightly across the sky and earth, blooming with brilliance for billions of miles. A three-legged golden crow in the middle swayed out endless true fire of the sun, scorching and distorting everything. For the first time, I don't know how many descendants of the Qin family, even he didn't even scream, but turned into ashes. Not good. Countless people from the Qin clan were brave and arrogant 1 second and wanted to conquer the Tianyuan world, but the next moment they became fans. Those who were lucky enough to survive were pale and trembling. They never thought that he and others have not yet arrived in the Tianyuan world, but they are the first to kill them, and they are the two great emperors at the same time. This golden crow, plus a halberd is really too terrifying. It seems like it can reopen the world, allowing countless people feel a sense of suffocation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 417. So brave. The man shouted softly, his eyebrows raised, his voice filled with endless coldness and unabashed cruelty, and surging murderous intent swept out crazily. Bang! He remained motionless, and the formations under his feet spread out and turned into countless beams of light. They intertwined to form a curtain of starry light. It was like the stars gathered together to form a sky map, blocking this halberd. Boom! There was a loud noise. The sound shook the world, and the big stars outside the territory were shaking. The sky collapsed, and the 10 directions resonated. Countless stars turned into the most dazzling fireworks in the sky. Just the power of this blow, I don't know how many lives have been killed. The great emperor of the Ye clan and the great emperor of the Golden Crow clan. The man stood on the divine peak, his hair was flying, his clothes were rustling, his eyes were opening and closing, and endless cold light was shooting out. He had his hands on his back, and his body was like a mountain, motionless. Good eyesight. The ancestor of the Ye family walked out of the chaos. He was dressed in black robes and held a halberd upside down. There were crystal drops of blood on the halberd blade, which was breathtaking. It seems that you have worked hard to invade the Tianyuan world. Aren't you the same? Although the man was frightened, he spoke calmly. Among the 3 realms, I am afraid that only the senior master of Tianji Tower can find the root of our Qin clan. In the news he just received, people from the Ye clan and the Golden Crow clan have entered the Tianji Tower. It is impossible to say that they went to the Tianji Tower without asking anything or asking about anything. For now, these 2 forces have already understood the news they bought in Tianji Tower. That is the route forward for their Qin clan. It is with this route that they can ambush themselves here and kill themselves by surprise. Of course, they may have also bought the list of spies sent by their Qin clan. Without this list, they want to accurately find out the spies sent by their Qin clan. It can be said that it is as difficult as climbing to the sky. Tianyuan realm is not the purple Xian realm, it is not a place where you can come and go as you please. At this time, an old man in golden robe slowly walked out. Golden light flowed all over his body, like a blazing sun, hanging in the sky, shining on the 9 heavens and 10 earth, making people dare not look directly at him. Is it? There was a hint of disdain on the man's face, his eyes looked in all directions, and he said coldly and arrogantly, how many unworthy emperors are there in your Tianyuan world? Do you know the reputation of our Qin family? It's just a true immortal. The ancestor of the Golden Crow clan sneered, his old face twitched, and with a joking look in his eyes, he said calmly, you can guess how much information we bought from the senior owner of Tianji Tower after we went to Tianji Tower. For example, you, Qin Kang, only reached the peak of the great emperor 300,000 years ago. In order to reach this point, you have spent a lot of heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Qin Kang's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. He had a bad premonition. The fact that he had reached the peak of the great emperor was not a secret, but it was not known to everyone, at least except for the Qin family. Apart from the top leaders of the clan, few outsiders knew about it. But the 2 emperors of Tianyuan realm in front of them knew it. The only possibility was that Master Tianji told them. In this case, the question is, Master Tianji, how much information did you tell them? It seems you have guessed it. The ancestor of the Golden Crow has his hands behind his back, with a graceful look. Above his head, a big bell rises and falls, filled with thousands of atmospheres, making it look like a demon emperor has been resurrected, proud of the world. Since the 2 of us dare to come, we are absolutely sure to keep you here completely. Today I can let you understand a truth. The Tianyuan realm is not the Zixuan realm, and the two realms cannot be measured by just one true immortal. Although Zixuan realm is stronger than Tianyuan realm, Tianyuan realm also has a unique advantage, and that is the existence of Tianji Tower. They can send people to Tianji Tower at any time and get first-hand news at any time, such as on the ground before the people of the immortal world completely crossed the border. Now outside the border, they are plotting against them. Of course, they can't stop everyone, but as long as most people are seriously injured before the war starts, it will be enough. We only have 3 days, don't waste time. The ancestor of the Ye family said in a deep voice. 3 days is the time limit given to them by Master Tianji. If everything cannot be solved within 3 days, a great terror will happen. What is this great terror? Senior Master Tianji, I have made it very clear to them. That is the ancestor of the Qin family. Only this person at the level of a true immortal can be called a great terror. If we wait until that true immortal takes action, let alone cheating him to death, this Qin Kang, even they themselves, may be completely left behind. Form a formation. Qin Kang drank coldly. Behind him, the elite Qin clan who were lucky enough to survive quickly formed a battle formation. Each one of them was holding a battle spear as red as blood. The spear tip was cold and sinister, flashing coldly. They have a fierce luster. They can survive because they all have something special about them. Although they can't compete with the emperor in the current formation, they can save their lives and prevent the entire Qin family from completely falling apart before they even set foot on the Tianyuan world. Deadly. A bloody formation covering the sky. The ancestor of the Ye family looked indifferent. He raised his hand again. The halberd in his hand was cold and faint, and then sprayed thin fairy mist and chaotic light from all directions. He slashed down with force and slashed towards the Qin family members. This is to exterminate, kill everyone. Wrong. When the ancestor of the Ye family uttered the words bloody evil and sky-covering formation, Qin Kang had a bad premonition in his heart. This is the unique battle formation of their clan. It is the formation created by the ancestor. Chuang, in the past battles, he was always unfavorable, and he defeated many powerful forces. But today, the ancestor of the Ye family said it outright, and the other party pointed out the weaknesses of the formation when he made a move. Obviously, the other party already knew it. The way to break the formation. How can this be? Qin Kang's eyes were about to burst. At this moment, he wanted to rescue him, but it was already too late. The other party was also a great emperor, and he couldn't stop him even if he wanted to. The great formation of my Qin clan is definitely not a person who has just become emperor and can spot flaws at will. In any case, this is also the formation created by the ancestors of the Qin family. No matter how strong the ancestors of the Ye family are, they cannot be stronger than their ancestors. Since it is not the method he saw to break the formation, then there is only one way to break the formation. It's possible. After the Ye family went to Tianji Tower, they not only bought their route forward, but even the Qin family's method of breaking the formation. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 418. Boom. There was a loud noise. Between the sky and the earth, a sad light of blood dyed everything red. The big halberd, like a pillar of heaven, fell from above and fell hard into the formation below, with sharp and terrifying power. Devastating everything, sweeping across everything. This was a scalp-numbing sound, which seemed to penetrate the 9 heavens and 10 earth, making the gods tremble, whistling, terrifying roar, bursting out at the same time. In the blink of an eye, most of the Qin clan's army was destroyed. It was not that they were not strong, but that everything about them had been seen through. Even after they formed a formation, they could block the attacks of several quasi-emperors. But after being attacked by it, after the emperor saw through the weakness, the formation they arranged was just like paper and had no effect. Bang! The first large formation was destroyed, followed by the second and third, shattered into nothingness. Court death! Qin Kang roared, and he stepped forward and came to the ancestor of the Ye family. He was like a humanoid ferocious beast. He rushed to the front alone, facing the two great emperors, and punched out. This punch moved forward. The force was so powerful that it completely smashed the sky. The terrifying power filled the infinite sky and drowned everything. "I've been waiting for you." The ancestor of the Ye family narrowed his eyes, swept the halberd in his hand, and collided with his fist, making a sound of cracking the golden cloud, shaking countless creatures and spitting blood. This wave was really terrifying. The emperor fought, no one dared to get too close, they all stayed away from each other. Boom! Another loud noise came out. The battle soon reached a fever pitch. Qin Kang was 1 against 2. In a short time, he was evenly matched with the two great emperors of Tianyuan realm. The gap in strength could not be easily overcome by holding some information in his hands. Smoothed. The other side. Tens of millions of miles away from the place where the Qin clan fought with the two great emperors of the Tianyuan realm, a war also broke out here. But now, the fighting has ended. On a warship, a quasi-emperor level elder from Fuyun Mountain had his Tianling cap lifted off, leaving 5 scratching holes in his chest, and blood was flowing out. This kind of injury was terrible, and his soul was almost torn to pieces. If the wound were a few minutes deeper, his internal organs would be crushed into a ball of mud. Although the internal organs were shattered, it would not be fatal, but his vitality would definitely be severely damaged. Hateful. The elder of Fuyun Mountain, with undisguised murderous intent in his eyes, looked at the Tianyuan realm in the distance and said in a deep voice, "I never thought that the Tianyuan realm would spend so much money. They actually sent 2 quasi-emperors to intercept and kill us. Just a death struggle." Beside, another quasi-emperor stood. He also had terrible injuries on his body, but his condition was obviously better. In the battle just now, he was only seriously injured. Now he has barely suppressed the injury. One quasi-emperor blew himself up and another quasi-emperor escaped. They also paid a heavy price in order to intercept and kill us at Fuyun Mountain. In the face of absolute strength, even if you know the secret, what can you do? The quasi-emperor on the side had a cold voice, and a chill pierced through the past and present. He opened and closed his eyes, looked in the direction where the quasi-emperor fled, and said softly, "When we come to Tianyuan realm, they will understand that everything today is just in vain. And in the Tianyuan world, we still have the Yama Emperor from Fuyun Mountain to support us, so how can they resist?" Fuyun Mountain only sent 2 quasi-emperors this time. The reason why another great emperor was not asked to come forward was precisely because Emperor Yan Mo had already rushed to Tianyuan realm first. As long as they went over to meet up, they could easily reach Tianyuan realm. Occupy a place. Having said that, people from Tianyuan realm may have bought a lot of information in Tianji Tower. Judging from the fluctuations in the battle in the distance, it seems that people from the Qin family have also encountered an ambush. The people of the Qin family know their route of action in Fuyun Mountain. Naturally, they in Fuyun Mountain can also easily get the route of the Qin family. After all, the two sides are not too far apart. At this moment, they can even easily feel terrifying fluctuations coming from the void. Judging from the movement, the people who went to ambush the Qin family must be above the level of the great emperor. Maybe in a short time, there will be news of the fall of the great emperor. Although the strength of Tianyuan realm is not as good as that of Zixuan realm, with the existence of Tianji building master, it is not without the strength to fight. Just this ambush, I am afraid that many forces will be seriously injured. The quasi-emperor, who was seriously injured, took a deep breath and looked at the army in Fuiyun Mountain. His chest seemed to be pressed by a huge boulder, making it difficult to breathe. Not long ago, Fuiyun Mountain was still as powerful as a rainbow, with endless chariots and warships flying across the sky. And now everything is in shambles, being bombarded by the two quasi-emperors of Tianyuan realm with imperial weapons. As for the quasi-emperor who blew himself up, he obviously came with the determination to die. If he wanted to leave, relying on the news from the Tianji Tower, he could escape completely, but he had to die together with Fuyanshan, and he only just missed dragging a quasi-emperor with him to embark on the road to hell. Now think about it. The two quasi-emperors of Fuiyun Mountain still have lingering fears. If the other party is not so arrogant and wants to drag the two of them to die together, the final result is hard to say. At least one of them can be replaced. But even so, the Fuiyun Mountain side, a quasi-emperor has also completely lost his fighting power. It is almost impossible to recover from his injuries without 1,000 or 2,000 years. The owner of Tianji Tower has done all the calculations. Judging from the people sent by Tianyuan World, it is obvious that the other party knows the exact strength of our cross-border force. The quasi-emperor next to him said softly. When he said this, a hint of fear arose in his heart. Fortunately, the Tianyuan World is not strong. Even if it is a targeted layout, their high-level combat power is obviously insufficient. If the Tianyuan World and the earthly immortal world are on equal terms. With just one hand, I am afraid that I can eat all the people who cross the realm this time in the earthly immortal realm. In just one moment, it is estimated that the earthly immortal realm will not be able to recover for hundreds of thousands of years. So what? The quasi-emperor, who was seriously injured, had the murderous intent in his eyes that almost solidified, and said coldly, the gap in strength cannot be made up by some scheming methods. They probably took out all their belongings in this interception. The road ahead will definitely be smooth. Once we enter the Tianyuan world, any resistance will be in vain. Anyone who dares to resist Fuiyun Mountain will be killed. Good. Another quasi-emperor nodded and said softly, what you said coincides with what I think. Let's continue on the road. We at Fuiyun Mountain are the first to defeat the ambush here. Maybe we can be the first to step into the Tianyuan world. The quasi-emperor said in a deep voice. Good. Another quasi-emperor nodded, and with the divine seal in his hand, countless Fuiyun Mountain troops quickly resumed their formation and continued to advance towards the Tianyuan realm. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 419. A few days later. Tianyuan World. The sky above Liu Yun sect. The sky is cracked, and countless terrifying auras permeate the past and present. They are overwhelming from the sky and permeate the earth, as if some terrifying existence is about to come out. What happened? Are people from the earthly immortal realm coming? He actually appears above our Liu Yun sect and delivers my order to evacuate all disciples immediately. In Liu Yun sect, strong aura rushed up and came to the sky. Looking at the scene behind the crack, everyone's heart quickly sank to the bottom. Looking around. At the other end of the space, there is endless elites. Each and every one of them has impressive power. Their eyes are like lightning when they open and close, with an undisguised chill. Although these people are a little embarrassed, their strength is unquestionable. Among them, there are only figures above saints. There are countless of them, and as for the Holy Lord, there are even more. At the rear, there is a fierce horse that can be seen beyond the horizon. On top of the powerful ferocious beast, there are soldiers with bright armor sitting on them, with their spears pointing to the sky, and their cold flashes. A fierce luster. There is a chilling air that spreads crazily. Fuiyun Mountain. An elder from the Liu Yun sect took a breath of cold air when he saw the flag on the warship at the front. If it were other forces, they might not know it yet, but the words Fuiyun Mountain, because of Fang Han, has almost spread in the Tianyuan world. In the Earth Immortal world, Fuiyun Mountain is considered a first-rate force. If placed in the Tianyuan world, its power is no less than a restricted area. How can Liu Yun sect, a third-rate force, resist it? You know. Their Liu Yun sect only has one saint sitting in charge, which is far behind some holy places, let alone resisting Fuiyun Mountain from the earthly immortal realm. Die. A cold voice came from the crack in the space. I saw a majestic figure walking out from the Fuiyun Mountain warship, like a sun, exuding a powerful aura that stung people unable to open their eyes. After spitting out a word, he stretched out a palm, stirred up the wind and clouds in the sky, and struck directly from hundreds of thousands of miles away. The palm of his hand covered the sky and the sun, covering tens of thousands of miles in radius. The sun and moon rotated in the palm of his hand, and the stars died out. A scene emerged, extremely terrifying, and was covered with a roar. It's over. The only saint elder in Fuiyun Mountain, his heart was ashen, his face was pale, and he murmured two words. Then there was a loud bang. The Liu Yun sect, which had been passed down for tens of thousands of years, disappeared into thin air. The people who disappeared in the Liu Yun sect disappeared. In an instant, Fuiyun Mountain's warship also cut through the sky, passed through space cracks, and officially arrived in Tianyuan world. Senior brother, you can send a message to Shanman. We have arrived at Tianyuan realm. On the warship. The man who just took action glanced at the surrounding void and said softly. A Liu Yun sect, in their eyes, is not much heavier than an ant. If it is destroyed casually, it will be destroyed. It is just for them. Make a place to stay. After all, they are not from the blood demon realm. If they want to cross the border, they have to be covered and sneaky. Today's move can be regarded as their announcement to all the creatures in the Tianyuan realm that they are the people of Fuiyun Mountain. He has completely conquered this world. Ken. The quasi-emperor, who was seriously injured, nodded slightly, a jade slip appeared in his hand, and quickly conveyed a message to Fuiyun Mountain. At the same time, Floating Cloud Mountain. In the headmaster's hall. An elder looked surprised and said, Headmaster, we people from Fuiyun Mountain have already entered the Tianyuan world and established a firm foothold. Oh! The headmaster of Fuiyun Mountain has a graceful demeanor. When he heard these words, he was not surprised at all. He said calmly, has it been smooth sailing along the way? To be honest with the leader, Tianyuan realm did send people to ambush them, but their vitality was not harmed. Once Emperor Yan Mo passes by, our Fuiyun Mountain can establish a territory in Tianyuan realm. The elder said slowly. In his opinion, after Fuiyun Mountain passes, it will definitely be a crushing situation. Just relying on a few miscellaneous fish in the Tianyuan world is simply not enough. In fact, this is indeed the case. The Tianyuan world faces the forces in the earthly immortal realm don't have much resistance at all. Even with the Tianji Tower behind them, they can't bring out the absolute strength to make a comeback. If nothing goes wrong, the Tianyuan realm will fall under the control of the earthly immortal realm in the future. After the Tianyuan world is ruled, they can also attack the Zixuan world from both sides. With all three worlds in their palms, their immortal world will definitely be on a higher level, even if the Master Tianji merges with a certain world in the future. Their immortal world don't be cowardly. At the very least, it's not a big problem to resist. After all, in their earthly immortal world, there are people at the peak of true immortals, and they may break through one day. For example, after the breakthrough of true Lord Changsheng, even if the senior master of Tianji does not merge other worlds, they in the immortal world can also take the initiative. Very good. The master of Fuiyun Mountain said softly as if he had a pearl of wisdom in his hand. Let the two elders, after entering the Tianyuan world, not act rashly to avoid repeating the mistakes of the underworld. But The headmaster of Fuiyun Mountain paused for a moment and continued, however, Fang Han's whereabouts must be monitored at all times. Once he comes out of Dawang City, he must be captured as soon as possible. At this time, he still didn't give up looking for Fang Han. Although there are many benefits in Tianyuan world, in his opinion, the secrets that Fang Han holds in his hands are no less than the benefits of Tianyuan world. If you can capture Xia Han and get an immortal weapon, that's just the beginning. For example, they are also very keen on the inheritance left by ancestor Fang Han. A true immortal technique, plus an immortal weapon, if it can be used properly. It is completely possible to create a force that is not weaker than Fuiyun Mountain again. If all these things fall into their hands, Fuiyun Mountain will be able to make further progress, and it will almost be around the corner. Don't worry, the headmaster, with Emperor Yan Mo here, even if Fang Han gets his wings, he can't escape from the palm of an emperor. The elder said confidently. Between his words, he was full of confidence in the Emperor Yama. If necessary, some remnants of the Fang clan can be captured and sent to the Tianyuan world. With the existence of a little beast like Fang Han, his temper will definitely be uncontrollable. The headmaster of Fuiyun Mountain said indifferently. There are quite a few members of the Fang clan. Some of them are suppressed in Fuiyun Mountain at this time. It is not difficult to catch some of them. Yes. The elder's heart trembled, and he raised his hands in salute. He understood that his mountain master was about to lose his patience, and waiting all the time was not an option. If Fang Han never left Dawang City, would they really have to wait until the end of the world? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 420. Correct. The headmaster of Fuiyun Mountain spoke again and called the elder who was about to leave. Master, do you have any other orders? The elder stopped, turned around and asked with a puzzled expression. Now that we, Fuiyun Mountain, have established a firm foothold in the Tianyuan world, it is time to start with the following things in the Tianyuan world. After all, no one can figure out the temperament of the master of Tianji. Master Fuiyun Mountain said softly. If it were in the past, when they occupied Tianyuan realm, they must have harvested a lot of resources, and then arranged the territory they occupied into a training ground. Or they would have been suppressing it in order to continuously harvest resources. The natives of the Tianyuan world. But now, they cannot do this. Because no one can be sure when the Tianji building master will merge into a world again, and no one knows how terrifying the world that the Tianji building master will merge with next will be. Since I don't know anything, the position of Tianyuan world is very valuable. Today's Tianyuan world has been completely surrounded by the purple mystic world, chaotic star sea territory, and blood demon world, even if other worlds merge in. First of all, the one who will be affected will definitely not be the Tianyuan world. If the mountain gate can be moved to the Tianyuan world, his sect will be much more stable. The headmaster of Fuiyun Mountain does not believe that other forces cannot see the benefits. Since he can think of it, others must have thought that now they are the first to step into the Tianyuan world. If they don't find a good site, how long will they wait? If it's too late, I'm afraid I won't even be able to drink the soup. Does the leader mean to move us from Fuiyun Mountain to Tianyuan realm? The elder soon wanted to understand his headmaster's thoughts. He asked softly, aren't we being a little reckless by moving here at this time? Fuiyun Mountain is not a third-rate force. Their family has a big business and they can't move just because they want to. Besides, after leaving the earthly immortal realm, the base here will be beyond our reach. I understand this too. The headmaster of Fuiyun Mountain nodded and said in a deep voice, Fuiyun Mountain will not be completely gone for the time being, but we still need to make some necessary preparations. Some disciples from Fuiyun Mountain who are scattered outside, Please pass my order to recall them all, and some resources will also be sealed in the treasure house. Remember, the news of our relocation from Fuinshan must not be leaked until the last moment. Fuinshan has moved away. Once this news is known to outsiders, there is no guarantee that no one will have strange thoughts. If you leave on your own territory will be occupied by others. That will be a big loss. I understand. The elder cupped his hands and said softly, I'll do it now. Watching the elder leave, the master of Fuiyun Mountain raised his head slightly and glanced in the direction of Tianyuan world. He stroked his beard with one hand and narrowed his eyes, showing a trace of coldness. This time when Fuiyun Mountain steps into Tianyuan world, it will be a new starting point. Not only do they have a brand new chassis, but they also have Fanghan as a mobile treasure house. Adding the two together, it will be difficult for them to fly to the sky in Fuiyun Mountain. After moving the mountain gate, short-term pain is inevitable, but looking at the eternity, his decision is not unwise. Maybe hundreds of millions of years from now, his spiritual position will also occupy an extremely important place among the ancestors of Fuiyun Mountain. After all, he is a Z patriarch. Of course. Another possibility cannot be ruled out. That is, hundreds of millions of years later, he is still alive and has cultivated to a higher realm. In this way, his status will be even higher. Who knows, then at that time, Fuiyun Mountain had become a giant in the entire huge world. Thinking of that situation, a ray of light bloomed in the eyes of the headmaster of Fuiyun Mountain, as if a bright future was waving to him from afar. As long as he tiptoed gently, everything would be over. Everything is at your fingertips. Soon, my name will spread throughout the world. A soft murmur. In the main hall of Fuiyun Mountain, there was a faint sound. At this time, Fuiyun Mountain, hundreds of thousands of miles away. Three figures were busy furtively. Fang Han's hand slid in the void, carving out formations one after another. He frowned and softly underestimated the formations covering hundreds of thousands of miles in radius. Just the emperor-level formations, are all lined up. As many as 4. Senior is making too much of a fuss. According to his idea, he would take the ancient lantern and secretly come to the earthly immortal realm, and then take advantage of it and give it to Fuiyun Mountain. Just like that, it is a real immortal blow after all. It can definitely give Fuiyun Mountain a drink. Even if it doesn't hurt your muscles and bones, it will definitely hurt your vitality. He and Aunt Lan are just two people and can leave at any time, but Fuinshan has a big family and a big business, so he can't run away easily. As long as he has a chance, he can take care of it. It's a gourd and a gourd. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. When the time comes, Fuiyun Mountain will definitely not be able to withstand it. Even if there is a true immortal level formation, what can he do? Just once or twice is enough. The more times, he can still defeat Fuiyun alone. Mountain. But after he called Meng Qingzi, his style changed. Under the leadership of the other party, the three of them rushed to the immortal realm long ago, but Meng Qingzi did not agree to take action immediately. Instead, he secretly arranged the formation. It was just a matter of arranging the formation, but the area of the arrangement was very far away from Fuiyun Mountain, hundreds of thousands of miles away. As a result, the area covered by this formation was very vast. Because of this, they spent a long time, no further action has been taken. What do you know? In the midst of his busy schedule, Meng Qingzi turned around and glanced at Fang Han, and said angrily, according to your method, if this continues, it will be impossible to break through Fuiyun Mountain within thousands of years at least. And during these thousands of years, anything can happen. Senior Tianji poster, I'm not just selling you information. After all, there was a true immortal in Fuiyun Mountain's ancestors. Their mountain protecting formation is no joke. One or two true immortal attacks may not be able to break through from the outside. As long as they can withstand Fang Han's first attack, then you will definitely be able to react quickly next. Even if you don't know who did it, won't they go to the TNG building to ask? As long as you ask the owner of the TNG building, everything will be revealed. As for the second chance to take action, then it depends on whether Fuinshan is willing to give it. If they want to spend a lot of money, they can definitely buy a foolproof opportunity from the owner of TNG. Besides, your Fang clan was wiped out by Fuiyun Mountain, don't you want to take this opportunity to take more revenge? Meng Qingzi said calmly. This matter originally had nothing to do with him, but Fuiyun Mountain has entered the Tianyuan world, so he can't sit still. It's rude to come and go without reciprocating. If he doesn't take this opportunity to make a fortune, how can he be worthy of Tianyuan? Countless creatures who are about to die in the world. He can't afford to offend the entire earthly immortal world, but in the name of Fang Han, it's okay to bully Fuiyun Mountain. Anyway, if something goes wrong, Fang Han will be the one to take care of it. He is just helping. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 421. Of course I think so. Fang Han said without hesitation, but our top priority, shouldn't we take action against Fuiyun Mountain as soon as possible? After all, this place is not far from Fuiyun Mountain. In case someone discovers. Talk about this. Fang Han did not continue. But everyone present already understood. The three of them set up a killing array at the door of someone's house. It would be okay if they were not discovered, but if they were discovered, it would be great fun. At that time, not to mention taking action, even how to escape is a problem. There is no need to wait for people from Fuiyun Mountain to go to Tianji Tower. They might be wiped out on the spot. Don't panic. Meng Qingzi said this emperor's method of collecting interest is quite outstanding. Easy, no one will find out. Besides, Fuiyun Mountain is also a giant in the earthly immortal world. In the past, no one dared to provoke them. How could they have thought that someone would set up a killing array in front of his mountain gate? Moreover, the formation has not been activated and the aura of the formation has not been leaked. Even if a true immortal passes by, it is possible to ignore it, let alone the Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain. I hope so. Fang Han whispered. To be honest, he didn't have any confidence in Meng Qingzi's method. If they stay here for one more day, there will be more chances of exposure. They have been wandering here for more than half a month. If the formation is not arranged well, the three of them are really in danger. If you follow this emperor, the revenge of your Fang clan will be avenged soon. Meng Qing's god is here. When it comes to breaking through other people's mountain gates, he can pat his chest and say that no one has more experience than him. If he wants to maximize his profits, he must cripple all the enemies at once. The formation he has laid out, it not only prevents people inside from going out, but also prevents people from outside from coming in. More importantly, these formations can block some of the aftermath, so that they will not alarm the entire Earth immortal world, and also allow them to retreat calmly, leaving behind got plenty of time. Don't forget, I have spent a lot of money on attacking Fuiyun Mountain this time. If you act without permission and alert the enemy, don't blame me for being rude to you. At the end, Meng Qingzi ordered in a cold voice. Not to mention the cost of setting up the formation, these materials were all paid for by himself. With Fang Han's current net worth, he couldn't squeeze out any oil or water. What's more important is, he heard that Fuinshan was going to be dealt with, so he went to Tianji Tower himself. This time, he did not buy Fuinshan's formation breaking method, but bought the weakest point of Fuinshan's formation. In this way, although the price was small, a lot. But it still gave him a toothache. After all, the mountain protecting formation in Fuiyun Mountain was at the true immortal level. The resources he risked his life to grab from the true immortal inheritance were almost all spent because of this. Fang Han's impulsiveness led to his failure in the end. Meng Qingzi definitely had the possibility of killing someone. Anyone who has wasted so many resources may not be able to keep calm at that time. Younger generation, understood. Fang Han took a deep breath, suppressed the impulse in his heart, and said softly. The enemy of the genocide was right in front of him, and he was suffering every day, but for the sake of the future, he could only restrain himself temporarily. After all, in the long run, Meng Qingzi's method, it is a good strategy. If he breaks into the interior of Fuyun Mountain, he may be able to make a fortune. Not only will he make up for the loss, but he may also have a surplus. When he goes to Tianji Tower again, he may be able to have more weapons to deal with Fuyun Mountain. Method. Just understand. Meng Qingzi's voice was still indifferent. He kept moving in his hand. He raised his hand and drove a sacred material into the depths of the earth, connecting the 10 directions of the formation. A misty Taoist rhyme spread out. In the past few days, many disciples from Fuyun Mountain have come from all over the country. Although I don't know what happened inside Fuyun Mountain, one thing is certain. Fuyanshan will definitely make big moves next. Meng Qingzi said firmly. Seniors, this is an opportunity for us. Fang Han's eyes lit up and he said in surprise. As soon as he was about to attack Fuyun Mountain, all their disciples came back. Didn't this happen to be a gunshot? He was originally worried that if there were some people in Fuyun Mountain, they wouldn't be there. Within the sect, if he and others break in, there is still the possibility of being surrounded by people inside and outside. For example, Emperor Yan Mo is still in the Tianyuan world. Now that the other party's disciples have returned, doesn't he have the opportunity to take over the entire sect? Fuyun Mountain, ready in one pot. This is your chance, not mine. Meng Qingzi said casually. His goal has always been the treasure house of Fuyun Mountain. As for the disciples of Fuyun Mountain, he doesn't take it seriously. Killing more or less will have no impact on him. Anyway, after finishing this job, I just ran away. That's what the senior said. Fang Han did not refute. Now Meng Qingzi and he are in the same boat. Whatever Meng Qingzi says, in the end, both of them must cooperate with each other. In 10 more days, the formation will be almost complete. Meng Qingzi comforted him casually. He looked at the distant scene with steaming clouds and rosy clouds. His eyes were extremely fiery. It is hard to imagine how many good things there are in a sect that has given birth to true immortals. In addition, Fuyun Mountain has just been destroyed. If he can kill the Fang clan, there will be even more good things. If he can rush in, he can make a lot of money without saying a word. With luck, he can clear out the entire Fuyun Mountain. At that time, their Juyu demon sect will completely developed. Thinking of this, Meng Qingzi wiped the 10 empty storage rings on his hands. Each of these rings has a radius of tens of thousands of feet. There is no problem in putting a big mountain in it. It can be seen that this time, how firm is your belief in coming to Fuyun Mountain? It's a pity. If there wasn't an emperor sitting in Fuyun Mountain, it would have been much more convenient for me to buy a formation breaking method directly from the hands of the senior master of Tianji. Meng Qingzi sighed in his heart. If he could perfectly recreate what happened in the Holy Land of Shaking Light, the process would be much simpler. Unfortunately, Fuyun Mountain is not the Holy Land of Shaking Light. If he really did this, he would have fallen into a trap. Even if it was, he couldn't bring Fang Han in with him, because the ancient lamp in Fang Han's hand could not distinguish between friend and foe. One blow would be equivalent to a real immortal taking action. Although Fuyun Mountain could be destroyed at that time, the treasures of heaven and earth in it, and they themselves had to cool off. So, to be on the safe side, they finally decided to attack from the outside. It's only 10 days, I can still afford to wait. Menkingzi pursed his lips and once again glanced at Fuyun Mountain. Then he calmed down and began to quickly set up the formation.